Hey folks, this is JR with DIY Prepper. Welcome to the range. One of the most important and fun topics in the world of preparedness is guns. While many of us use them for hunting, target shooting, or concealed carry now, if we were to find ourselves in a disaster situation, being able to protect yourself and your family would be even more important than it is now. Scared, desperate people tend to do stupid stuff, and you don't want to be on the receiving end of it. But not all guns are built for every task, and that's why having a well-rounded selection of firearms is so important. So today, we're going to take a look at 7 types of guns that should help you survive pretty much anything. And while I will go over the specific guns that I have and their pros and cons, I'm also going to give you an idea of other options that may work well for you, because which specific gun you choose will depend on your own unique personal situation. But the first type of gun everyone should own is a concealable handgun, and the main advantage that one of these has is that they can be taken pretty much anywhere. If you do a good job concealing it, no one should know that you have it, which will prevent you from hopefully getting unwanted attention, at least from that. Then if you can deploy it quickly and accurately, having that element of surprise could give you an advantage over someone who's trying to harm you and your loved ones. Now, when selecting a handgun, you want to balance how easy it is to conceal with how easy it is to shoot. So here I have my CZ75 P01, which is very similar in size to a Glock 19. And I think guns like this are sort of in the Goldilocks size range. They're a good compromise between a full-size handgun, which is easy to shoot but not all that fun to carry, and a subcompact, which is easy to carry but may not be as easy to shoot and also has a lower capacity. With this, I can carry it all day without any issues, but I can still get accurate hits at longer distances. And that's important during this day and age, because you never know when some loser with mother issues may decide to go crazy with a rifle and go wipe out the produce section. While you never want to go up against someone that has a rifle with a handgun if you have a choice, I feel much better having something like this with me than I would a subcompact. Then, since it isn't a burden to carry, I'm a lot less likely to leave it at home than I would be with something larger. I tried carrying its big brother, the SP01 Tactical, one time when my wife and I went to a movie theater, and it was an absolutely miserable experience. If that was the only gun that I owned, I probably wouldn't carry nearly as much as I do now. Another important thing to consider when choosing a handgun is caliber, and my recommendation is to get something in 9mm, 45 ACP, or 40 Smith & Wesson. If you're using good defensive ammunition and have good shot placement, all of those will get the job done, and they're also fairly common. During normal times, you should have no problem going to a local gun shop or sporting goods retailer and picking up ammo. Now, on the other side, they will be some of the first things to sell out during a shortage, but in my experience, they'll also be some of the first things to come back, just because it's very easy for companies to make money off of them. And also, don't cheap out when selecting a handgun. Get something reliable. In my opinion, your concealable handgun is the most important firearm that you own. Now, of course, if you know a fight's coming, you do want a rifle. But chances are, if something does happen, especially just during normal life, it's going to be totally unexpected. And that rifle will probably be at home or in your vehicle, so it's not going to do you any good at all while Mr. Loser with mother issues is losing his mess. If you have anything on you, chances are this is going to be it. So you want whatever you have with you at that time to be good quality and properly maintained, so you have the best chance possible of making it out of that situation alive. Now, as you can probably tell, I'm a big fan of CZ. They're reliable and they have great ergonomics, but they can be a little pricey, and they aren't the best choice for people with small hands. My wife is very petite, and because of the size of the grip and how far forward the trigger is, she simply can't get a proper grip on it. Glocks, specifically the G19 and 43X, are considered by many to be the gold standard for concealed carry, and Smith & Wesson MPs are used widely as well. But of course, there are other options out there too. Just find what works well for you. And y'all, if you're enjoying this video, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and also select all notifications. That'll help me get more content to y'all, grow the channel, and make my videos better. If you made the jump from my other channel, DIY Prepper TV, thank you so much for coming over. And if this is the first time you've seen my content, I'm glad you're here. The second type of gun you'd need to survive if the doodle hit the poodle is a semi-automatic rifle set up for close to intermediate range use. Here I have my AR-15, but other common examples of something like this would be an AR-10, AK-47, SKS, and Mini-14. Guns like this are all suitable for hunting and defense, but there are a few reasons why I chose an AR-15 over the others. First, it uses a very common caliber. Both 5.56 and 223 are pretty easy to find, and they tend to be cheaper than larger calibers, although you can get 7.62 by 39 pretty cheap as well. Intermediate cartridges like the 5.56 and 223 also don't produce a lot of recoil, which will help you get faster follow-up shots, but it's also helpful for new shooters as well. First time my wife ever shot a gun, I started her out with my 22 rifle, got her comfortable with the basics, and then moved her straight over to this AR-15. I explained to her that this rifle shoots a bullet that's the exact same diameter as the 22 she just shot, but with a little more powder behind it. I loaded up a magazine with one round, let her shoot it, and then loaded up more after she did well with that. Then parts for AR-15s and also AR-10s are very common. If you have a larger gun shop near where you live, you probably won't have any trouble finding everything from magazines to entire lower receiver parts kits. Since these guns are so common and a lot of people build them, keeping spare parts on hand isn't going to cost a whole lot. Another advantage to having a ton of aftermarket support is that you can set up your rifle for the specific task that you plan to use it for. AR pattern rifles really are kind of, Legos for grown-ups. With AR-15s and AR-10s, you can also switch out upper receivers for different purposes. While mine is set up for close-up use, if I wanted to, I could buy or build an upper with a longer barrel and a long-range scope, and then use that for longer-range shooting or deer hunting. I could also get a barrel in a different caliber like 6.5 Grendel that would be more well-suited for that task. The next type of gun you need to survive pretty much anything is a 12-gauge shotgun, and the reason why is their versatility. Up close, it would be really hard to find a more devastating weapon than a 12-gauge, especially if you use double-aught buckshot. Then they're also great for hunting since they can shoot numerous kinds of loads for different animals. Buckshot and slugs can be used on larger game, while birdshot, as the name suggests, can be used on birds. Imagine that. You can even swap out barrels on certain models so that you can use the same shotgun for both hunting and defense. Another good thing about a 12 gauge is that it uses common ammo that's really easy to find. During the major ammo shortages of 2009 and 2012 to 2013, rifle and pistol ammo was extremely difficult to find. I remember trying to find out when stores got shipments in and trying to get there as fast as I could, hoping that I wasn't too late, and then even if there was something, I could only buy a couple boxes at a time. But I could almost always go into a store and find at least some type of 12 gauge ammo. It was usually the more expensive bird hunting rounds, but I was still able to occasionally find 100 round value packs as well. So while my AR and my CZ were starving to death, well, not really, my shotgun was still pretty well fed. When selecting a 12 gauge, get either a pump like this or a semi-automatic. Single shot shotguns just take way too long to reload, and when it comes to barrel length, 18 inches is kind of a good choice for defensive use, while a longer barrel like what I have is better for hunting. A shorter barrel is going to be nice if you need better maneuverability, while a longer barrel will allow the pellets to travel further before they spread out so much that they lose their effectiveness. That's what makes them good for hunting birds that are, a good distance away. Now, the gun that I have here is a Remington 870 Express Magnum. This was from their budget lineup before the Express line was replaced by the Fieldmaster, but based off my experiences, my next shotgun purchase will probably be a Mossberg, and the main reason for that is reliability. I've had several extraction issues with this shotgun, particularly with cheaper low brass ammunition. Now, some of y'all may say just buy better shotgun shells, which is fair, I guess, but by that same token, pump shotguns have a reputation for being some of the most inherently reliable firearms ever produced. It shouldn't matter what you put in one of these. They should be able to feed high brass shells, low brass shells, and even cat poop if necessary. The fact that this one can't, even after it's been worked on, really bothers me. I'm also aware that the Express is a cheaper firearm, but once again, that shouldn't matter from a company who's been producing this model of firearm since 1950. If you want to put a nicer finish and a higher end stock on something like a Wingmaster, yeah, go for it. But every gun that leaves the factory should at the very least be dependable. The Mossberg 500s and 590s that I've shot, though, haven't had those issues, and just aside from better quality control, I think another factor could be that Mossbergs have 2 extractor claws rather than just one, like what you have on an 870. Having 2 claws, I imagine, creates a more uniform pulling force than what you would get with just one. The next firearm you'll want to have during a disaster is a .22 rifle. These are excellent training tools, and they also work well for small game hunting. Say you're hunting something like a squirrel. If you hit it with a 7 mag, the squirrel will be everywhere, maybe even in different time zones. But if you use something chambered in .22 long rifle, it won't tear up nearly as much, especially if you can manage a headshot. They're an excellent choice for getting new shooters comfortable with firearms since they're low recoil, relatively quiet, and they're also accurate. All of those things make them very shootable, which will give new shooters a much better chance of having early success. And let's say you're training a child or someone who may not be comfortable with firearms. If you can set them up to do well from the very beginning, that'll help them get over that fear faster, enjoy shooting more, and make them more likely to continue to do it. When I was a miniature child form DIY prepper, I was given a 12 gauge and told to shoot a Coke can my dad had set up for me. 1 second, I could see the front bead on the end of the shotgun hovering over the Coke can, and the next second I could see my feet here and here as I was launched backwards. Then for a while after that, I didn't really want to have much to do with firearms until my grandfather let me shoot a .22 pistol. Then one thing led to another, and here I am today. But anyone with the ability to understand and practice good gun safety should be able to handle a .22. Another good thing about .22s is that their ammo's cheap and easy to store due to how small it is. Then when you're shooting it, the sound also won't carry as far. That's good for security during a long-term situation. And if you could get a suppressor, it would be even more quiet. Now, the gun that I have here is a Ruger 1022. This is one of the most common .22 rifles in the world, and what I like about it is that it's a blank slate. You can do almost anything that you want to with it. The only things I've done to mine are swap out the sights with some fiber optic ones because the stock ones, especially the front side, is pretty awful. And then I also added some sling studs to it, so not a whole lot. But if you wanted to, you could add, say, an aftermarket stock to it to turn it into a tactical plinker or make it into a high-end target rifle using parts from somewhere like Volkwarzen. The next gun you'd want to have for long-term survival is a long-range rifle. These are usually bolt guns like the one I have here, but you can set up AR pattern rifles or other semi-autos for this purpose as well. And the reason why you want this type of firearm is to make precision shots at longer distances. This will be useful if you're hunting or having to defend yourself from a threat that's on the way but not quite to you yet. It's better to deal with them there. Something that shoots a larger caliber like a 30-06, a 7 mag, or a 308 will be a very good choice for this since they'll give you a longer effective range, so they'll be able to hit with more energy than something smaller like a 223 will. Those can take down any large game in North America, so they should also be effective against two-legged varmints as well. When setting up a long-range rifle, be sure to get a good scope because a good rifle without a good scope is still going to be basically worthless. The one I have here is an older Leupold. I have a Nikon on my other hunting rifle, and I know a lot of people have had success from Vortex optics as well. While these aren't cheap, they do provide good bang for your buck, and they aren't out of most people's price range like something from Swarovski would be. When it comes to specific models, the Remington 700 and Ruger American I think are pretty popular. Mine though is my grandfather's hunting rifle that he used before he passed away, and he built it off of an old VZ24, which is basically the Czech version of the 98 Mauser. He was a gunsmith in the 80s and 90s. He did all the machining and bluing, and he even hand checkered the stock on this rifle. He started using the 7 mag after he had a stroke, so he wouldn't have to go hunt down the deer that he shot. The stroke had severely limited his movement, but with good shot placement, the deer just kind of dropped where it stood, which was convenient for everybody except, well, the deer. The next firearm that would come in handy during a disaster is a larger caliber handgun, such as a Magnum revolver or a 10mm pistol. These are useful if you live in an area that has dangerous wildlife like bear. We don't have too many of those where I live, but we do have quite a few feral hogs, which can still be pretty dangerous. Having something with a little extra power will help you get better penetration on those kind of animals. But when dealing with larger threats like that, most people will usually opt for a revolver chambered in .357 or .44 Magnum. I wouldn't recommend going a lot higher than that unless you have a lot of shooting experience, since getting follow-up shots is going to be pretty difficult because of the high recoil. Between the two, .357 Magnum revolvers are more versatile since you can also shoot 38 special ammo in them. This will allow you to practice for a little cheaper, and it's also nice during shortages since you can use either caliber. Now, you've probably noticed that what I have here is not a revolver. This is a Glock 20 chambered in 10mm. 10mm is commonly used by the Alaska State Police since, like Magnum cartridges, it is effective against larger animals. And I chose this over a revolver for two main reasons. First, this was a lot cheaper than any of the revolvers I was interested in. I know that there's Magnum revolvers in the same price range as this Glock, but if I get one, I want a Smith and I'm willing to pay for it. Another thing I like about the 10mm is its ability to deliver more follow-up shots due to its higher capacity while still giving good penetration. While revolvers are generally considered more reliable, Glocks are also well known for their reliability. So if this is properly maintained and you have good fundamentals while you're shooting, you're probably not going to have any sort of malfunctions. Then, since it's semi-auto, the action will absorb some of the recoil, which will further help with follow-up shots. Then, the last gun that we'll talk about today is a pellet gun. While these aren't useful when it comes to defense, they're extremely quiet and they're excellent choices for small game hunting and training. Now, one thing that you need to remember with pellet guns is that many of them are supersonic, which means that when they're fired, the pellet will break the sound barrier, making a very loud cracking sound. So if you're getting one of these for stealth hunting or practicing somewhere that a loud sound could cause issues and make people freak out, then either get a subsonic pellet gun or a more powerful pump BB gun that can also shoot pellets. Another good thing about a pellet gun is that their ammo is dirt cheap. You can get a can of around 150, 250 pellets for under $10. Then they're also pretty good at controlling pests. So at the end of the day, if you have these 7 types of guns, you should have most of your bases covered when it comes to hunting and defense in a long-term survival situation. Now, if you want to see more defensive preps or gun videos in the future, then be sure to check back here next week. And if you come across this video later on, then I'll be sure to put some other videos that you may enjoy here. And y'all, of course, feel free to stop by my other channel, DIY Prepper TV. Thank y'all for stopping by. Y'all have a good one.